Exomologiste to Kyrio te agathos, alleluia.
Otis ton neona to eleos aftu, alleluia.
Oh, come on. Oh, what, yeah?
You don't show me.
You can't even
I don't know
see
if David wants to.
I can't even see you anyway.
I know. People can tell my physical.
The statue.
In a good way.
Only the best way.
Oh, no, I didn't want to record it.
Right, you can step back. He's only gonna show David anyway.
Do you only want to debate this, or you want to do anything else as well?
I mean, there's one other we could do. If you're not interested in doing this anymore, we can talk about something else.
Well, we can talk about a bunch of things. You
I
happy?
mean, it is Easter. It is Easter.
It is Easter indeed.
So we want to get to the bottom of the resurrection.
And we can even talk about if the crucifixion occurred.
I mean, it is all connected. Good Friday,
It
Easter Sunday.
is, right?
It's all
and the
connected.
Quran denying it. What does that mean?
It is denying it. You're right. It is denying
Well,
it.
in a way, not an absolute way, but we can talk
Okay,
about
let's do that in a second. I just want to ask you another question.
Let's go for it.
Okay, is Jesus for you the ultimate high priest?
Well, yes.
Do you believe he's
So-
the ultimate high priest?
Let's talk about it, right?
Okay.
Yes, he will be the ultimate high priest, the one who will reign forever.
Yeah.
Who will be both king and priest in heaven. So there isn't more ultimate that you can get than that.
I agree.
Every other high
If it's
priest.
the case, I agree.
Every other high priest mentioned in the Bible is either temporal or eventually dies. So all the way from Melchizedek all the way down to Christ. So he will be the ultimate high priest in that regard.
So can I ask, the high priesthood, can anybody be a high priest?
Well, yeah, like I mentioned, there are many high priests.
Can
mentioned.
anyone be it? Can I be a high priest for the Jewish people?
For Jewish people, not for them in particular.
Why not?
You could-
What prevents me from being a high priest?
The station, I believe, is held by a particular tribe within the Jewish people.
Which tribe?
I believe it would be the Levites in most
Levitical
cases.
priesthood. Yes, Levitical priesthood. Good. Is
And-
Jesus a Levite?
So he doesn't. In one way, you could argue for him being a Levite if you would like. However,
I'm not arguing anything. I'm just asking at this stage.
so he is thought of. He's thought of as there's two answers you can give here. On the one hand, he isn't just a high priest for the Jewish people. He's a high priest for the entire world or the church. So in the fact that it's mentioned that he will be a high priest in the order of Melchizedek, who was a high priest but not for the Jewish people, I could make the argument that he is a high priest for the entire world, not just the Jewish people.
Melchizedek's a high priest. Are you sure?
He's a high priest in the order of Melchizedek. So Melchizedek was a priestly king,
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry. Okay.
which is why he blessed Abraham.
Got you. Of course. Right. So can you show me a verse where Melchizedek is a high priest?
So he's a priestly king.
Is
Right.
that high priest?
Well, it would be a high priest in his context. It wouldn't be a high priest in the Jewish context, which is something instituted later on during the Mosaic covenants.
Right.
But he is a mirror, a shadow, a typology,
Typology,
of what you'll
okay.
actually see.
But nowhere in the Bible does it say that he's a high priest. You acknowledge that?
It does not call him a high priest, but his
Okay.
station is one of a high priest.
Okay. So what we understand about the high priest and that station, it's for the Levitical priesthood, the people,
Well,
the descendants of Aaron. Yes.
that's the Jewish version, because, for example, Moses' father-in-law, Jethro, was I think a priest or a high priest of Midian, or I think
He's a
it's
priest. He's a priest.
A priest,
But
yeah.
no one's given the title high priest other than the Levitical priests. Just so you know.
A high priest wouldn't be something that would be unique to only the Levites or the Jewish people.
That's fine. Can you show me evidence when it's used for someone else? That's what I'm asking for.
There wouldn't be. I don't know if it's captured in the Bible. However, there are other priests in other neighboring civilizations.
Priests.
There are Egyptian priests. I don't know if the term high priest is used for them, but
That's the problem.
well, a high priest is supposed to be a chief priest.
Okay, to help us understand.
Okay, how about this?
Why does Paul call him a high priest?
Define a high priest. If
Well,
you- yeah.
High priest is someone who comes from the Levitical priesthood, who comes
Only.
from the line of Aaron, and they're the ones who are in charge of making the sacrifices on behalf of the people. And
But-
you can only be from the line of Aaron to do it.
But they're also just simply priests in the line of Aaron, correct?
Can you prove it?
So a high priest is a person that only comes from the line of Aaron, and it's
Yes.
only one per generation, or
Well, obviously, when the next person dies, and another person becomes a high priest. there might be a hierarchy of it, but the high priest is the person who offers the sacrifices
Yes, so
at the temple.
I would say that the high priest is simply a position. There'll
Right.
be priests below him,
Yes.
and then those priests below him will eventually be able to maybe ascend to being a high priest.
Perfect.
In that same context,
Yeah.
in Egyptian, Mesopotamian religions and cultures, they would also have the idea of a high priest, a station higher than all the other priests.
So can you find me that?
In history or
In the
in
Bible?
The Bible does not have to mention high priests of all
Doesn't have
nations.
to.
It doesn't have to know.
Okay, so
'Cause it's
what-
not an
can I ask you
encyclopedia
another
of
question?
ancient cultures.
To help us narrow this down, why does Paul call Jesus a high priest? What's the purpose?
What I mentioned earlier.
Why does he call him that? Go ahead.
What I mentioned earlier, it doesn't have to be. Earlier, like I mentioned, it doesn't only have to be in the context of the Levitical priesthood.
So why is he calling it?
It's a broader context where he's a priest for the entire world.
So he's a high priest.
For the entire world.
He's a high priest, and the ultimate high priest that doesn't come from the line of Aaron.
Again, my contention with this is high priest historically wouldn't only be limited to the line of Aaron.
Okay.
There is
but you've given no evidence for that.
Well,
just so we know.
I can show you historical evidence of high priests in other
High
cultures.
priest, I don't need historical evidence. I
But-
need the biblical one because you only believe in the Bible.
Hold on a
What's the
second.
point of showing me evidence? You don't believe in the history.
Hold on a second. I believe in both history and the Bible.
Equally?
What do you mean equally? So, for example, I don't look at history for like moral teachings.
Obviously, if you look at Jewish history,
No, hold
they
on a
say they
second.
killed Jesus.
Hold on a second.
Yeah, that's true.
Sorry?
The Jewish Talmud says that Jesus is a...
Not necessarily.
Do you believe in that history?
It determines how you read it. It determines depending on how you read it. You can be talking about a different Yeshua or a different Joseph or actual Christ. It depends.
Wait, one that was switched out?
Sorry?
One that was switched out, maybe?
They don't talk about him being switched out.
Oh, I don't know. You said another one. You said another,
Yes.
you said another one.
The name Yeshua
That
is
sounds like an Islamic thing.
No, it's not,
Sorry, are you
because the
converting?
name Yeshua is very common.
Are you reverting to Islam?
We agree.
No.
We agree.
That Christ is Lord, absolutely. So, the name Yeshua is very common. There are
I agree.
multiple.
I agree it
You
is,
can
yeah.
go to burial sites today in Egypt. In Israel, and there's many people with that name. It's the same as
Joshua is Yeshua, isn't it?
Joshua, Yeshua, whatever the case might be.
So not Jesus.
When you're looking at the Talmud extract, it depends if you want to interpret that as being the same person that we call Christ or someone else.
So he's
but
not a high priest the way that we understand it from the line of Aaron, is what you're saying.
he doesn't have to be a high priest in the line of Aaron because the Bible calls him a high priest in the order of Melchizedek, not in the order of Aaron.
But
So
see,
he's
this is
even
the issue.
greater.
This is why Paul gets it wrong, because Paul, like you, is trying to attribute something to Melchizedek that doesn't actually comport. Melchizedek is not a high priest. That's why I was asking
as I
you.
was saying
Find me
earlier.
high priest where Melchizedek is called a high priest.
So effectively, you're doing the whole show me where it says X in the Bible.
He told me to do it.
Hold on a
He said, where
second.
does it say eat?
No, I said that
Oh,
you're
come
eating
on,
the
David.
lamb.
No,
Do you
no,
see
no,
what's going on here?
no. He said eating.
All right.
He did say eat.
So when you want to come back, let me know. It's a
David,
simmer.
man,
Breathe.
I'm trying. I'm
So-
trying to.
Inhale and exhale. So I'm alive.
He's
So
alive. He did nothing wrong.
I did nothing wrong.
He's innocent.
It was Hosea. So
David, we're gonna wrap this up. See, go on, finish up.
not yet.
Go on. Hostage?
Huh?
Hostage, yeah.
Exactly. Like the guys who wear the masks.
Yes,
and,
yes. Yeah, like the guys with the masks, yes.
and carry guns.
It's reversed now, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
We're going to keep you for 300 days. All right, cool. So, bottom line, the high priest spoken about in relation to Jesus isn't just mentioning the Levitical high priest, it's mentioning an even grander scale of a high priest, one for the high priest of the entire world, who will rule in heaven. So, when you're asking if Christ is descendant from the line of Aaron,
Which he has to be a high priest, yeah.
No, it has to be a Levitical high priest. Now, you can make the case that he is descended from Aaron through some kind of line with potentially Mary. However,
But he can't because he's from the line of David. You can't have two daddies, can you?
Well, there's not about having two dads, but you can descend
Can you
from
have two
two
daddies?
groups.
If Jesus is from the line of David because he's the Messiah, can he also be from the line of Aaron?
You can descend from two groups, yes.
You can.
Yes.
How? When you only inherit your father's name. You don't
No,
have your mother's name.
that's not quite how it
Unless
works.
you have two daddies.
That's not
Can
quite
you
how
have
it
two
works.
daddies?
So you get, for example,
saying no.
That's not quite how it works. In the tradition, you get your tribal
No, but
affiliation.
that's still not your tribe. It's not your blood. The Jews are the Bible's very consistent about
Not always, because you have Caleb, for example, who the spy being adopted into a clan.
But it's not. He's not blood. Then they can adopt him.
Yeah, but
it's not his lineage.
prove that it has to be blood.
It's in Deuteronomy. It's in Deuteronomy.
Saying,
can you do it? Your phone's already out. Can you do it?
Deuteronomy what?
You don't want. I want to prove that it's lineage. Lineage comes to the father, right?
No,
you don't agree?
No, the tribal affiliation comes from the father,
right?
And then the Jewish identity comes from the mother.
So Levite and the Davidic line, are they the same line?
They wouldn't be the same line.
So
but
Jesus can only be one of them unless he has two daddies.
It's possible for somebody to actually have both of them in the ancestry.
Right, maybe through a mother if they intermarried, but he would still only take one lineage.
But if it's as far
as have two.
As far as that's not true. You can be descended from two different clans.
How? I'm asking.
Hold on a second.
Yeah, go on.
If you're speaking about lineage as being blood alone, then certainly tribes.
Thank you, Numbers. Sorry, not Deuteronomy, Numbers. I always get confused.
Well, you were there already, so you can read it.
You may as well get it out.
So you were there already. Sorry, mate. So you can have affiliations, or you can have ancestry coming from more than one tribe. However, your identity within that tribe is determined by your father. But somebody like Christ, potentially having ancestry from both the Levites and the Davidic line, wouldn't actually be disqualified in that instance. But what I'm telling you here is you describe him as an ultimate high priest. And
that's what Paul says.
And that word ultimate means something.
Numbers 180 says, and they assembled all the congregation together on the first day of the second month, and they declared their pedigrees after their families by the house of their fathers, according to the number of names, from 20 years old and upward by their polls.
That's absolutely fine.
Is it? You sure?
I mentioned I mentioned very clearly.
It's fine for us. It's not fine for him.
Well, no, I mentioned very clearly that tribal affiliation comes from the father. I mentioned that very clearly.
Okay, so that means he can't have two daddies.
No, it's not about having two daddies, because you mentioned blood.
Yes.
So lineage-wise, he can descend from both a Levite as well as a Davidic line through Mary. However, that doesn't entail that he has to have one or the other as far as
the father's names.
Your father's names determines your tribal affiliation.
Right.
However, genetically,
Levite and Davidic are two.
But genetically, you can descend from both through intermarriage.
Unless you have two daddies.
No, you're confusing tribal affiliation with genetic lineage.
I agree to disagree. Have you got? It's not fair. I've asked you two about Christianity.
Yeah, it's all good.
Do you want before I leave? Is there something you want to ask me? Or?
Yes.
I hardly ever see you.
What do you make?
I don't know. I don't want you to get
Even here,
get worried about you.
In Matthew 1, it says the genealogy of Jesus, the Messiah.
Yeah.
Genealogy of Jesus, Messiah, son of David, son of Abraham. Abraham was the father of Isaac. Isaac was the father of Jacob. Jacob the father of Judah, and his brothers Judah the father of Perez, Zerah. Right? Perez the father of Hezron. Hezron the father of Ram. Ram the father of Aminadab.
Yeah.
Father of
Go over to the end. Then what?
Yeah.
Okay.
So basically, what they're saying here.
It ends with who? It ends with who?
And it ends with Jacob, the father of Joseph.
Yeah.
But before that, it's David, isn't it? He goes to David first.
Father of John.
So the Matthean author is simply attempting to establish his Davidic heritage,
right?
Not his Levite heritage. That's all.
So what's Luke trying to establish then? Is he also proving that he's from David?
Joseph, the son of David.
No.
Joseph, son of David. There you go.
No, I don't think the Lucan author is concerned with that in particular.
But he does mention David in the bloodline.
He mentions him in the bloodline, but
Davidic line, isn't it?
The Matthean author is more interested in showcasing how he's a Jewish Messiah, well, then the Lucan author is focused on other things.
But what they're saying here is that the identity tribe and the inheritance comes from the male line, the father, from Numbers 118 and Matthew 1.
I mentioned that already.
He doesn't want to do that.
I already mentioned.
You go
that.
ahead, David. Ask me a question before I go. Ask me a question.
Sure.
Like you said, it was Good Friday recently. Crucifixion.
It was
we deny the crucifixion. So
now you have no reason.
Too much respect, I suppose.
Well, again, respect of an individual, it does not come from denying their death. For example, you respect Muhammad, but wouldn't deny he was poisoned. So it's the same applies to both.
Well, I mean, there's a different opinion about that.
Well, it doesn't matter.
We don't say- we don't say
He was
Muhammad's God.
poisoned, and
We
by
don't say Muhammad's
admitting
God.
it.
Did he die?
Huh?
We don't say Muhammad's God.
Well, the thing is, so some of your new guys will say that Muhammad will sit on Allah's throne, which is very interesting.
Don't
So
know- I don't know about them.
it's a hadith. Your new younger boys are very interesting. The TikTok boys. They find the odd hadith where Allah sits on
one
the
of your
thrones.
elder boys is completely different about the Passover.
Huh?
Your elder boy over there, he's completely different about
he
the
said it
Passover.
was the Passover.
Inconsequential when comparing it to Muhammad sitting on Allah's throne. But hey,
Anyway, your argument.
my argument is as follows. So, if you're going to claim that the Quran that's a crucifixion, I don't see enough data saying that's the case. All the Quran is denying is a exaltation by the Jews, claiming that they did it. That's all. So, again, that doesn't deny crucifixion.
I mean,
So
I'm
as
not
a
too
Muslim,
sure.
you have no
They
reason.
did not kill him, nor did they crucify him. It's pretty clear. But then
well,
again,
no,
with Mark, you
what
were denying
comes
they're having the
before?
Passover meal. So I don't know how much clearer it's going to be.
What comes before that?
Before what?
Before that's a condemnation. They didn't do it. What comes before that? Well, the Jews claiming we killed the Messiah.
Yes.
So, if you look historically, crucifixion isn't handled by Jewish people; it's handled by Romans. So, very technically, they can claim the responsibility for doing it and actually committing him to death.
Sure.
But they're not the ones who carried it out.
But I would say the issue with that is what comes afterwards. But we raised him unto us. So it offers a different solution.
Which is perfectly
Which is the
in
problem.
line with what the Bible says on Ascension Day. So,
Ascension, we agree
Yeah.
on the Ascension. We can agree on the Ascension.
in that case, as a Muslim, you have no hard reason to deny the crucifixion, particularly given the fact that you have the passion narrative in your Hadith Qudsi.
What do you mean?
Well, the Hadith Qudsi
Go on.
around a certain prophet
Just,
who
can you
was
just confirm
bruised.
what he's saying?
Yeah. I'll show you.
Give us the Hadith number as well.
Look up the Hadith that says, forgive them.
The Quran says this. They did
And
not
do we
kill them.
kill the Messiah, Jesus, the Son of Mary?
In response
He's
to
saying
what?
The Quran is refuting the Jews. It's not refuting about the Romans.
Exactly.
So, it's saying the Jews didn't do it, but the Romans did it.
So the Romans did not the Jews.
Not the Jews, which is the most ridiculous argument I've ever heard.
Nope.
Let's make it clear what the solution was. He was raised up.
Right.
No, he was raised up, right?
That's right.
But he wasn't raised up as a.
You said he's raised up on the third day.
Sorry?
No, he's saying he was. We're saying
On
he's raised
Ascension
up
Day.
to heaven. He's saying yeah.
The same thing
but
happened.
Still, that verse doesn't negate the fact that he was crucified
Exactly.
first. You see what I'm saying? That's his argument. But
Yeah.
again, we're dealing with an individual who found it difficult to see that they were eating the Passover in Mark. So anyway, we won't pay too much attention to that.
No problem.
Well, you haven't refuted it yet, so keep trying. So, we have this in Riyadh as Salhin or whatever that is,
yeah.
654.
Yeah.
So, Ibn Masud.
I mean, I don't know if that's mutawatir though.
Doesn't matter if it's mutawatir because
Why not?
you're still ahads, so it's fine.
It's ahad.
Huh?
It's ahad. Is it?
You accept things that are ahads.
I don't necessarily have to, no.
Well, you don't have to,
I don't necessarily have to.
but you accept them.
I don't
And
necessarily have to.
in the same token,
So I'm not bound by it.
you're not bound by accepting mutawatir either.
The same
it
hadith
depends.
about Aisha and her age is ahad.
Huh?
The same one about Aisha and her age is ahad. So I'm not bound by it.
My argument against that hadith
Yeah,
is
yeah.
never a case of it being mutawatir nor ahad.
Right, good.
But simply it's a case where
what does it say? Let's read it.
even today, calm down.
Oh, sorry.
Even
Oh,
today, people use that as an excuse to harm children.
That's fine. I don't agree with them.
Huh?
Go on. Sorry.
Okay, fine. As long as you don't agree with that, then do more work
Ibn Mas'ud.
crucifying. So, I can see them.
Not interested.
I can see the messenger of Allah. Oh, really?
No, not really. It's not my job.
About kids dying.
It's not really
hey,
my
man,
job.
You're
It's
a
not my
great
job.
moral exemplar.
Not my job.
I can see the messenger of Allah look like one of the prophets of Allah whose people beat him and made him bleed while he was whipping the blood of his face.
Wiping
Wiping the blood of his face. And supplicating, Oh Allah, forgive my people because they know not.
Okay.
Now, which prophet is this talking about here?
Say again?
Who's he talking about
I
there?
can see the messenger of Allah.
Yep.
I don't have an issue with
Look
that.
like.
This has nothing to do with the crucifixion.
Huh?
This has nothing to do with the crucifixion.
It's the passion narrative.
That's fine. He could have been beaten before the whole thing happened.
But wait, is that,
then again, we don't
is
know what
that
day it
what your
was. Was it the
Quran
Passover
says?
or before the Passover?
Is that what your Quran says?
Say again?
Was he beaten?
The Quran doesn't say either way.
So you can accept he was beaten.
Could have been beaten. Why not?
Okay, so
Maybe when he was arrested. Maybe he was rescued at the after he was arrested.
wait, you believe he was arrested?
Maybe.
Wait, I'm asking you what you believe.
Maybe. Again, I'm not bound by this. Ahad, like you said. You said it.
I didn't say it was ahad. I said you're going to stick ahad.
So is it mutawatir?
It doesn't matter what it is.
It doesn't matter?
It doesn't matter.
But it does.
It does not. Because
if it's
you're not bound by one or the other.
Well, I'm not bound by something. If I deny mutawatir, it means I've denied the faith. You know that, right?
Not necessarily.
No,
because
necessarily.
It depends who it comes from. If it comes from an individual who you don't accept, who you think is a liar, or whatever the case is,
But David, then it wouldn't be mutawatir.
Well, mutawatir simply just means mass transmitted. It doesn't mean that everybody said it.
Yeah, but remember,
right?
you said a phrase. You said hadith Qudsi.
Yes.
Hadith Qudsi means.
It's supposedly revelation.
Say again.
Revelation, supposedly.
That's right.
In the hadith form.
There you go. Okay, so that would be mutawatir. Is this mutawatir?
If it's Qudsi, then by your...
Is it Qudsi? I'm asking.
I believe it is Qudsi.
Let's have a look. Let's have a look.
It says here, it could be Moses. It says here, it could be Moses as well. He was also
Could be Moses.
When was Moses whipped by his people? Out of curiosity.
Okay, there was many. Zechariah. It could be Jeremiah.
not
it
whipped,
could be
not
Daniel.
whipped. It said white.
Oh, sorry, my apologies.
It did say white.
When was Moses beat by his people and
It
bleeding?
said white. Yeah. Say again.
When was Moses, either in your traditional mind, beat by his people and bleeding?
Well, I mean, I could just say this. So you asked me the thing before. You said, does the Quran say this? If this goes against the Quran, then it can't be true.
It doesn't go against the Quran.
Well, how do you know?
Because the Quran leaves a white space.
Okay, well, there you go. You've answered
It doesn't
Do
describe...
I need to answer any further? You've answered
No.
the
You
question.
do need to answer further. Because
Okay,
who's this talking about?
Even if it's talking about Jesus, what's the problem?
Okay.
Well, in the Quran, we talk about Moses. When it says that in the Quran, it says, "Oh, you who believe, do not be like those who harmed Moses." Quran 33:6-9.
Who harmed Moses?
Okay,
This is
that's
the Pharaoh,
our.
the Pharaoh?
Yeah, he's
Right.
saying that he's trying to use his Bible to refute our Quran.
So-
we don't take his Bible.
So,
that's the issue.
yeah, you do.
Yeah, we do. Yeah. Sorry, I forgot. We can't decide on the Passover day.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we can't decide on the Passover.
You guys don't know the Passover is in the Quran, so you need the Bible for that. So,
What day is it?
Huh?
When he was crucified? Is it before or is it after?
on the day of Passover.
On the day.
On the day.
So,
So-
so they're not having the Passover meal. Sorry, okay.
Exactly.
I got your position up.
We got to go.
We gotta go. It's always fun though. It's always fun.
But, okay, well,
Got a long drive.
in that case, we can carry on later.
David,
But
be careful.
I'm always careful.
Yeah, well, I don't know. Don't put yourself in a risky situation. I'd say it to them as well. I wouldn't just say it to you. I'd say it to them as well.
Can you go say it real quick?
I already did. I spoke to you.
Well, what did he
I
say?
said, don't put yourself in precarious situations.
And he said,
He said, yeah, it's okay. He said the same thing. He's saying the same thing as you.
okay.
He's being very nonchalant like you are.
yeah.
You're the exact same.
It's okay. And if they mess with me, I'll bring Obi. I'll bring Obi.
There you go. All right. See you later. Was that Satan?
Christ is written, man. Huh? It's Tubal. Cool. All right. Anyway, people. I was just talking to Obi. He brought up a question about the Passover meal. The discrepancy described between what's in John and what's in Mark. Effectively, I'll check on it again, but from my recollection, I do believe that in the description given in Mark, it isn't describing an event where the Passover meal or the Passover lamb, was eaten on the day of the or the night, should I say, of the establishing of the Eucharist. That was the day. That was the next day. However, in that day, the lamb was slaughtered. So that way, it ties up with what John speaks about regarding the day in which the Passover lamb was eaten. I then wanted to move over and ask him a little bit about the idea of Christ and his crucifixion within the context of the Quran. And ultimately, it's sort of like a very interesting piece of amnesia that a lot of Muslims have, where they forget automatically that the Quran isn't actually denying the crucifixion, just denying the assailants or denying the people who actually caused it to happen, which is actually quite in line with what the Bible says. It wasn't the Jews that did it, it was the Romans. And so by that instance, then, there's no need to think that supposedly what was happening in the Quran is a denial of the crucifixion. It's an affirmation. And in fact, then that has certain entailments that the Muslims have to come up with. Like, for example, when I was talking about the Hadith Qudsi, by which the Prophet, who was wiping the blood off of his face, and telling the people, or telling us, by Ibn Masud's standards, that his Prophet was beaten by his people. Who was it? And the best thing they could do is bring up Moses, who was harmed by disbelievers. Who? The Pharaoh? If that's the case, then Pharaoh wasn't his people. His people are the Jewish people. So fundamentally, that verse is speaking about Jesus Christ, affirming the Passion narrative. So my take, if the Passion narrative is true, if the crucifixion is true, and if the ascension is true, then everything that Christ says in the gospel message is also true. It is true that he is the second person of the Trinity. It is true that everything that the Father does, he also does likewise. He only does what is the Father doing. And also he and the Father have the sheep in their hands, and no one can take them out of their hands once they're inside. And also, very lastly, John 6:40, Christ is the one who the dead will hear his voice, and then they'll be raised from the dead as a result by hearing his voice. So the claims of divinity tie in very, very well with the claims of the crucifixion and the resurrection and ascension that the Quran affirms. That's my take. All right. Yep.